The most important thing about P.B. Shelley's Ode to the West Wind is perhaps its association with the liberating spirit of the French Revolution. Like the French Revolution that killed hundreds of people and brought about the new ideas of liberty, equality, and fraternity, the West Wind too will clear the old leaves, old ideas of the yesteryear and help in new growth. The poem is a romantic poem, which means that it deals with nature and natural phenomenon. It emphasizes on the element of air, water, and earth. The main theme of the poem, however, is the idea of regeneration. The poem also invokes a harmony between mankind and nature, oneness in the universe. He skillfully combines natural forces and humanity to demonstrate liberty and harmony in the world. Written in iambic pentameter, the poem Ode to the West Wind can be divided into 5 different stanzas, and in the first 14 lines, in the first stanza, he portrays the west wind as a natural force that has the power to both destroy as well as preserve. Power over trees and leaves on land. And the second 14 line talks about the power of the west wind in the sky that causes the rain and storm and the movement of the cloud. The third 14 line speaks about the power of the west wind in the waters, in the oceans and the ocean floors. Fourth 14 line speaks about the poet's longing to have the fierce spirit or fierce power of the west wind to overcome his own thorns of life, his own problems of life. The fifth 14 lines is about the poet praying to the west wind to inspire him and revive his thoughts. He also asks the west wind to use him like it uses the forest as a musical instrument to create beautiful sounds and music. He wants the west wind to spread his message of hope that if winter comes, can spring be far behind? The speaker seems to be speaking to the west wind as though it were a person. The west wind is personified, addressed as the breath of autumn, who drives away the dead leaves which are yellow and black in color and past eaten. It drives them to the dark wintry bed. The west wind blows the dead leaves during the autumn to cover and protect the seeds like a corpse in a grave, until the bright colored sister of autumn, which is spring, comes and announces her arrival by blowing the musical clarion over the dreaming earth to allow new buds and flowers of different colors and smells to come into existence on the hills and on the plains. P.B. Shelley calls the west wind by different names, calling him the breath of autumn's being, a wild spirit, the destroyer and preserver, because the power of the west wind is at its strongest during autumn. The next 14 lines describes the power of the west wind over the clouds in the sky. It loosens the clouds as though it were shaken from the branches of heaven and ocean as trees. It brings forth the rain, lightning, and storm. In these lines, the west wind is called a dirge or a funeral song for the end of the year. It causes the vapors to collect in the clouds to bring black rain in the form of storm and fire in the form of lightning and hail because of the thunder. The next 14 lines speaks of the power of the west wind in the waters of the earth, the seas and the ocean. It disturbs the sleeping Mediterranean Sea and awakens it. The poet takes our imagination into the depth of the Mediterranean Sea and through the pumice Isle in Bayes Bay and to the depth of the Atlantic Ocean, where mythical places are covered with colorful sea mosses and foliage. The fearful sound of the blowing of the west wind makes them tremble with fear. In the fourth section or stanza, P.B. Shelley longs to be blown off by the west wind like a dead leaf or a swift cloud or a wave beneath the deep blue sea, so that he could share the impulse or the strength of the west wind. He remembers as a child how he would pretend and try to outrun the strong west wind. Then he desperately calls out to the west wind to lift him up like a wave, a leaf, or a cloud. because he had fallen upon the thorns of suffering, problems of life, and he is injured and bleeding. Because he cannot bear the harsh realities of life, he cannot endure the pain that never seems to end. He felt chained, bonded by something that was ruthless, tameless, and proud, just like the west wind. He is a captive of life, but he wants to be a captive of west wind. The poet calls out to the west wind to make him his lyre, or a musical instrument like it uses the forest and its trees to create beautiful musical sounds, so that if his leaves fall like the leaves of the trees, they would be blown by the west wind. His voice would be blown by the west wind. In beautiful harmony, he invites the spirit of the west wind to dwell in him and become his spirit and blow away or drive away all his uninspired and dead thoughts, like driving away the dead leaves to assist the coming of the new year or new beginning, new season. In the concluding part, the poet calls for inspiration from the west wind to spread his message of hope to mankind, which is, if winter comes, can spring be far behind? He closes with a rhetorical question. A rhetorical question is a question used by poets which does not seem to seek an answer, of course, but only to emphasize on a fact. Here, can spring be far behind means spring will be around soon. Here, right from the title of the poem itself, there is an alliteration. West wind. Wild west wind. And there are other lots of alliterations used by P.B. Shelley here in this poem, like sister of the spring shell, or bias bay, here oh here, grow gray, steep sky, sky's speed scarce seemed a vision, so sweet the senses faints, woods which wear, and many more. There is also a wide use of simile in lines like dead leaves blown by the wind is compared to the image of ghosts running away from a threat or an enchanter, like ghosts from an enchanter flee. There is also simile in the line where he compares the seeds to the dead bodies in a grave, like a corpse within its grave. You know, a simile is a comparison between two things using the word like or as. Just for your information. There is also simile in new budding plants being compared to flocks, sweet buds like flocks to feed in air. The wind blowing in a cloud is also compared to leaves falling from the trees, loose clouds like earth's decaying leaves. He also uses simile to compare rain and lightning to the bright hair of some mythical creature called Maenad, like the bright hair uplifted from the head of some fierce Maenad. The poet also compares himself to a forest using the word as, so it is also another simile. Die, lyre, even as the forest is. His dead thoughts are compared to withered leaves, like drive my dead thoughts over the universe like withered leaves. P.B. Shelley also uses metaphor to compare west wind to breath of autumn's being, or destroyer and preserver, or a dirge of the dying year. There are so many things to be discussed in Ode to the West Wind, but as for now, this is a short discussion of Ode to the West Wind by P.B. Shelley. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.